Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Hope all is well. In this video, we're going to be addressing the Torah's remedy for depression and boredom and all that type of things. And those things are interrelated, boredom and depression. And of course, it's important for me to mention that if a person's dealing with something very serious, a mental illness in a very serious case, of course they have to go get treatment, and they should go check with a medical professional, because sometimes people simply have health issues that require treatment. But in most cases, I believe that a person can cure all of their mental difficulties through the study of Torah, through God's guidance. So what is the Torah? What is the Torah's remedy for depression and boredom? Well, there are a few answers to this, but one, when dealing with boredom, I personally believe that boredom can actually cause a person to get closer to God if they channel their boredom to thirst for God. Meaning, we all find ourselves sometimes feeling a little bit unstimulated, desiring, something more entertaining to do. We want to do something that's more captivating, something more exciting. So when we find ourselves feeling that way, we have to remember that God is running the show, and that the Torah is actually the most interesting thing of all. Connecting to God is the most interesting thing of all. Any pleasure we could ever imagine is just a little drop of the pleasure of connecting to God. So if we can use that, it can actually channel us to get closer to God. So what a person should do when they're finding themselves feeling bored, they should meditate. They should think, wow, I'm feeling bored. What Torah subject do I find very interesting that I could kind of channel my boredom into, that I could really channel my thirst of God into? What can I do? Because everyone has a part of Torah that excites them specifically more than other aspects. I mean, of course, the whole Torah is holy. The entire Bible is holy. All of our aspects, all the mitzvahs, when we connect to God, our prayer, everything is holy. Everything is necessary in our relationship with God. But each person has a certain aspect of Torah, or multiple aspects of the Torah, that get them more excited specifically than others. So that is why it's important that each person finds that aspect of Torah that they find very exciting. And that is what I'd also recommend, finding a study schedule that you study. It's very important that a person has a set study schedule. So you have a certain text that you're learning, whether it's a Maseches in the Gemara, whether it's Chumash, the Tanach, or whatever it may be, whatever aspect it may be, or Hasidic discourse, or Halachas, a set of Halachas. I noticed that when you have a set study schedule and you notice yourself progressing, the pages are turning. Yesterday you were on page 9, now you're on page 11, you're on page 12, 14, 17. When you make that progress, you find yourself, it is very captivating because you feel like you're progressing in your Torah studies and ultimately in your relationship with the one above. So that is something very, very healthy, something very exciting when we feel like we're progressing, because a human being was created by Shem to grow. What separates us from animals? Because animals are also creations of God. An animal has a nature and he's set in his ways, whereas a Jew and a righteous Gentile, they can connect to God and they have no limit to how high they can reach. We can change our nature. That is actually what's precious to God. And this we can go into now when a person's feeling depressed. So just to sum up the boredom, that you can use your boredom to make you find the Torah that stimulates you. And especially I have to say that I should have mentioned this earlier, but here I came back into it. When learning deep Hasidus is the Hasidic teachings, based on Kabbalistic teachings. They are very, very exciting, especially when you're talking about the spheros, the different levels and the different worlds, the angels, the things that are above the physical. When you're studying the spiritual dimensions and you're learning it and it's clear, it's a very, very exciting thing. And actually that is the most one of the most entertaining, one of the most exciting subjects to study in the world. The most exciting pastimes is to learn Hasidus. And when you meditate on it, and when you can think about the spheros in your mind, you can think about these ideas in your mind, because eventually the more texts you learn, the more you're going to be able to think about it, meditate, contemplate it in your mind, and delve into it. That is something that's very captivating, and you'll notice that the boredom actually can push you to then study Torah. So when we do that, when we notice that boredom is just to get us closer to God. Why? How can boredom get you closer to God? Because you find yourself bored. So that means you push yourself to learn Torah in depth with excitement, and also with Gemara back and forth. You learn Torah, you'll be able to not only to to satisfy that boredom, but to be united with God in a potent, powerful, and exciting way, where boredom doesn't even exist. Now this leads into our next subject, depression. What's the Torah's remedy for depression? Well, the Alter Rebbe says something very, very beautiful in Tanya. The Alter Rebbe explains how when a person is feeling down, being depressed can actually be considered a sin in a certain sense. A person say, how could it be? What if I have a mental illness? So if you have a mental illness, it's a different story. And if you're going through mourning, you lost a family member, it's normal that you'll feel very upset. These are normal parts of life. But if a person is purposely looking for reasons to feel sorry for himself and always looking for reasons to put himself down, and to just look for reasons to see how people are harming them, then that can be considered a sin, because they're purposely looking to make themselves bitter. And we know we cannot serve God when we are bitter. When we are bitter, we shut God out of the equation. So what's the remedy for this? Person, actually, the Alter Rebbe then teaches how to take the sadness and use it for a holy purpose. So because being sad for no reason is a sin, because you're just making yourself sad and you're basically cutting yourself off from God, and you're being bitter with God, so to speak. But what if you tell me, oh, I can't control it, I just feel sad? There's a remedy that the Alter Rebbe gives to actually use it for a holy purpose, and that is, whenever you're feeling sad, you tell yourself, you think to yourself, in your mind, you think to yourself, the reason why I'm actually feeling sad right now is because I'm far from God. I may think I'm feeling sad because the business deal didn't go through. I may be feeling sad because I didn't get to go on the vacation I wanted to go on. I may be feeling sad because I didn't get the car I wanted. I may be sad because, X, Y, and Z. But really, I'm sad because I want to connect to God, and I still am far from God because the Moshiach's not here yet. I'm sad because I want to be closer to God. I'm sad because of my previous transgressions, sins. The Alter Rebbe explains how when you do that, you don't just get close to God. You don't just fix the sadness. You get closer than ever before. You get closer than had you not felt that sadness. So you now take this sadness and you elevate it. So to repeat, what do you do when you feel sad? You say, wow, I may think I'm feeling sad because I didn't get the pair of shoes I wanted, but really I'm sad because I'm far from God, and the Moshiach isn't here, and my soul is in exile, and God is hidden from me. Then you take the sadness and you get closer to God than ever before, and then you do true tshuva, and that is a true Baal tshuva, somebody who yearns for God and is broken by the fact that he's far from God. And that is why at Baal tshuva, the Rebbe explained how in that sense a Baal tshuva is higher than a tzaddik. Why? Because a tzaddik, he feels God's presence. He's always excited. He's always stimulated. He's always connected to God. But it's normal. Who wouldn't be? He has no choice. He's overwhelmed. He feels God's presence. Of course he wants to serve God. But about tshuva, he doesn't feel God. So he thirsts for God with a greater forcefulness, with a greater potency. So he yearns for God. His soul actually yearns for God in a much more potent way, because he yearns from God from a distance. And we know that when someone is far, it allows the reunification to be much greater. So let's yearn for God today. And you'll notice that when you turn that sadness into aim towards God, meaning everything in life we do, we have to aim it towards God. So if you're feeling bored, aim it towards God. Say, I want to learn some Torah. I want to learn. I'm bored. And you take that boredom and you learn Torah with a forcefulness. So too with a sadness. You say, really, I'm sad because I'm yearning for God. And then you'll notice not only will you not feel better after, but you'll feel connected, and you'll feel a urge and a yearning for God. And you'll see, that is really how we bring the days of Moshiach upon ourselves, when we aim whatever we're going through at God, and we bring God into every aspect of our lives. Even the sadness, even when we have a sad day, the sadness becomes holy when we make it about God. So may Shem bless you. May we all have massive smiles on our face with the coming Moshiach. Let us act b'simcha. Notice also, another very important here, when you act joyous, the external will permeate the internal, and then your whole entire being will be permeated with joy. And we'll celebrate the true joy with the coming Moshiach. May it be today. Be well.